A nurse begins caring for a boy in a vegetative state in a solitary mansion. The parents, consumed by grief, distance themselves from him, but the connection with the boy starts to change. One day, a surprising event occurs, leaving everyone incredulous. Isabella adjusted her pristine white uniform and took a deep breath before ringing the doorbell. It was her first day as a private nurse at the Thompsons' house, a wealthy family living in a mansion on the outskirts of the city. She had taken over the position from a colleague who had to leave unexpectedly, not knowing quite what to expect. The door opened, revealing a middle-aged woman with deep dark circles under her eyes and a tired expression. "You must be the new nurse. Come in, please," said Victoria Thompson in a monotonous tone. Isabella followed her through the spacious entrance hall, observing the sophisticated decor but also noticing a thin layer of dust on the furniture. It was as if the house, once full of life, had entered a state of suspension. Victoria led her to a room on the upper floor. "This is Noah, my son. He is 12 years old and has been like this for 8 months," she explained with a choked voice. Isabella approached the hospital bed where a boy with brown hair lay. His eyes were closed, and his breathing was almost imperceptible. Tubes and machines surrounded him, keeping him alive artificially. Noah remained motionless while his parents, Victoria and James, trapped in their own pain and guilt, hardly approached their son, believing he could no longer hear them. What hurt them the most was that, before the accident, Noah was the kind of boy who brought light wherever he went, always with a smile on his face. He loved running through the gardens of the house and playing guitar with his father on Sunday afternoons. "What happened to him?" Isabella asked gently. Victoria looked away. "A car accident. I was driving. A truck lost control. Noah was in the back seat." She could not continue as tears silently escaped her. Victoria stared at the ground as if the words carried an unbearable weight that she could never release. Silence took over the room, but in her mind, the sound of the truck's impact echoed incessantly. Every day, that fraction of a second returned to haunt her, the scene replaying like a movie that never went out of circulation. If only she had turned left. If only she had looked in the rearview mirror one more time. Every decision, every detail of that afternoon, now seemed like fatal choices. What were once simple gestures had transformed into deep marks of guilt on her soul, which no amount of time could erase. Isabella felt her heart tighten. Years ago, she had lost her younger brother to a rare disease. The pain of that loss still accompanied her, but it had also shaped her vocation as a nurse. Caring for gravely ill patients was her way of honoring his memory. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Thompson. I will do my best to take care of Noah," Isabella said sincerely. Victoria nodded quietly, thanking her before leaving the room. Isabella was left alone with Noah, studying his vital signs and familiarizing herself with the equipment. As she checked the IV, she began to speak softly to the boy. "Hi, Noah. My name is Isabella, and I will be taking care of you from today. I hope we can become friends." As the days went by, Isabella established a care routine. Besides the medical procedures, she made sure to talk to Noah, tell stories, and even sing softly to him. Victoria and James, Noah's parents, rarely appeared in the room. Isabella saw them only briefly, always with worn-out and distant expressions. Since the accident, Victoria and James barely looked each other in the eye. The guilt, even if unspoken, was always present, corroding what was left of the partnership that once united them. One afternoon, While changing the sheets, Isabella heard an argument coming from downstairs. The raised voices of Victoria and James echoed through the empty house. "It's been 8 months, Victoria. We have to accept that he won." James's voice broke. "Don't you dare finish that sentence," Victoria shouted. "He is our son. And that's why it hurts so much to see him like this. Maybe it's time to. Don't even think about it. As long as I live, I will fight for my son." The sound of a door slamming ended the argument. Isabella felt the weight of that shattered family. She looked at Noah, so serene in his deep sleep. That night, after finishing her shift, Isabella couldn't sleep. She lay tossing and turning in bed, thinking about Noah and his family. She remembered how her own family had come together during her brother's illness, finding strength in faith and mutual love. Months went by, and Isabella couldn't avoid comparing Noah with her younger brother. Both were children full of life, taken prematurely from what they loved. The difference was that, while fate had taken her brother away forever, Noah was still there. It was as if he was stuck between two worlds, and Isabella wondered if the presence of those we love was capable of anchoring someone to life. That was what she could not let Victoria and James lose, the chance to bring Noah back. It was her mission there, even if it hadn't been announced. One day, Isabella arrived early. She found Victoria in the kitchen, absent-mindedly stirring a cup of cold coffee. "Good morning, Mrs. Thompson. Can I talk to you for a moment?" Isabella asked hesitantly. Victoria looked up with tired eyes. "Of course, Isabella. Is there a problem with Noah?" "Actually, I wanted to talk about you and Mr. Thompson." Isabella took a deep breath before continuing. "I know it's none of my business, but I can't help but notice how much you're both suffering and how much it's affecting Noah." Victoria frowned. "What do you mean?" "Noah is in a coma." "I know," Isabella gently completed, "but I believe he can still feel your presence, your love, and right now, that's what he needs the most." Tears began to well up in Victoria's eyes. I can't look at him without feeling guilty. If I hadn't been driving that day." Isabella held the woman's hand. "Accidents happen, Mrs. Thompson. Guilt won't help Noah. What he needs is your love and strength." Victoria sobbed, years of repressed pain finally coming to the surface. Isabella embraced her, letting her cry on her shoulder. At that moment, James entered the kitchen. Seeing the scene, he hesitated for a moment before approaching. "What is happening?" he asked, worried. Isabella looked at him with determination. "Mr. Thompson, I think it's time for you both to visit Noah together." James seemed startled by the idea, but Victoria lifted her tear-stained face and reached out to her husband. "She's right, James. Our son needs us." With hesitant steps, the couple climbed the stairs, accompanied by Isabella. In Noah's room, they stopped at the doorway, as if an invisible barrier prevented them from entering. Isabella gently guided them closer to the bed. "You can hold his hand, talk to him. Noah needs to feel that you are here," she encouraged. Victoria was the first to move. With trembling hands, she touched her son's face. "Noah, my love, Mommy is here." Her voice faltered. James approached the other side of the bed, his eyes glistening. "Hey, champ, we miss you." Isabella watched the scene with a heavy heart. This was just the first step of a long journey, but it was a start. Silently, she left the room to give the family some privacy. In the following weeks, a subtle change began to occur in the Thompson household. Victoria and James started visiting Noah daily, sometimes together, sometimes separately. Isabella encouraged them to talk to their son, share their day, and recall happy moments. Previously, they had immersed themselves in daily tasks, unable to accept their son's situation. One afternoon, while tidying up the room, Isabella found a dusty guitar in the closet. She remembered Victoria mentioning that Noel loved music. Without a second thought, she picked up the instrument and cleaned it carefully. When James arrived for his daily visit, Isabella greeted him with the guitar in hand. "Mr. Thompson, I heard that you and Noah used to play together. Maybe he would like to hear a song." James was paralyzed for a moment, looking at the instrument with great pain. Slowly, he reached out and took the guitar. He sat next to Noah's bed and, with hesitant fingers, began to play a gentle melody. The music filled the room, bringing an atmosphere of peace that Isabella had never felt there before. She noticed a tear rolling down James's face as he played, humming softly, a song he had certainly shared with his son countless times. It was at that moment that something extraordinary happened. A tear fell from Noel's eyes. Isabella held her breath, fearing she was imagining things, but then it happened again. Once more, another tear fell. "Mr. Thompson," she exclaimed. "Look." James stopped playing abruptly, looking at where Isabella was pointing. "My God," James whispered, incredulous. Victoria, come quickly." Victoria ran into the room, alarmed by her husband's shouts. When she saw the scene, she began to call out to him. The world seemed to stop at that instant. Time, once so cruel, seemed to grant them a new chance. Victoria, with a trembling hand, touched her son's face, and for the first time in months, felt a true connection. It was not just a mother's touch, but a silent plea for him to come back, to cling to life. James, beside her, was choking back a sob that threatened to escape. That small gesture, a tear so subtle it might go unnoticed, was a storm of hope for them. They didn't speak, but the silence was filled with a single certainty. Noel could hear them. "Noel, my love, can you hear us?" she asked through tears. Amidst the tears, Isabella knelt beside Noel, and with a heart filled with hope, called to the heavens for strength and healing. She felt, in her fervent prayer, a silent connection with the boy. Perhaps that small tear that rolled down his eyes was a sign, a subtle proof that he was still present, hearing, feeling, even in his apparent inertia. When Noah made the slightest of movements, something almost imperceptible, emotions erupted. Victoria and James's restrained sobs mingled with Isabella's exclamations of joy. It was a miracle, they thought. There was no other explanation. Somehow, Noah was coming back to them. Driven by a hope that had long eluded them, Victoria and James sought a second medical opinion. Something that once seemed unnecessary, given the definitive diagnosis, now became urgent. The room fell into absolute silence when the new doctor lowered his eyes to Noah's medical records. "We were wrong," he began. The words sounded like an almost whispered confession. Victoria felt her heart stop for a moment. The previous exams pointed to an irreversible condition, but upon reviewing more closely, we realized there was a mistake in the interpretation. Noah's condition is not as critical as we believed. James sank into the chair, his face pale, his expression caught between relief and disbelief. Victoria, on the other hand, didn't know whether to laugh or cry. A mix of anger and relief completely overtook her. "What does it mean?" she asked, her voice filled with urgency. The doctor hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "It means there is a chance of recovery, but it will be a long and uncertain process." We need to start a new treatment protocol immediately. Hope was reborn, but it brought with it the bitter taste of all the lost time. The trust they had blindly placed in the initial diagnosis now seemed like a betrayal. James looked at Victoria for a moment, as if, for the first time, questioning all the decisions they had made up to that point. But with his restrained manner, he closed his eyes and thanked silently, feeling the weight of gratitude and the certainty that a new chance had been granted to his family. Noah's first gesture was almost imperceptible, a slight tremor in his hand, the opening of eyes that seemed like a dream. But for Victoria and James, that small movement represented the beginning of a new journey, one of redemption and healing. On a sunny day, Noah opened his eyes completely, still weak and confused, but with a sparkle of life that filled his parents with renewed hope. With each passing day, small signs of improvement emerged, like flowers slowly blooming in spring, fragile but laden with promise. The revelation brought a wave of hope that flooded everyone's heart. The family, once shattered by pain and guilt, was now united and strengthened by faith. Noah's intensive treatment began with fierce determination. The path ahead would be long and fraught with uncertainties, but the rediscovered love and unwavering faith kept Victoria and James steadfast on the journey. They knew with a silent certainty that miracles could continue to happen. Day after day, Victoria and James were more united than ever, working in harmony to help their son recover. On difficult nights, they supported each other, their hearts intertwined by the same force that had once nearly destroyed them. Isabella watched everything with a feeling of deep fulfillment. She knew her time there was coming to an end. Soon, Noah would no longer need such intensive care. She would have to move on, but she did so with a light heart. One bright afternoon, while Noah was doing physiotherapy in the garden under his parents' watchful eyes, Victoria approached Isabella. "I can never thank you enough for what you've done for our family," she said, moved. Isabella smiled, trying to downplay the gesture. "I just did my job, Mrs. Thompson." "You did much more than that," Victoria insisted, her eyes shining with gratitude. "You brought back what mattered most. You reminded us of the power of love, of faith. You gave us hope again." Isabella's eyes welled up. "I'm glad I could help. Noah is a very special boy." Victoria looked at her son, who was now laughing beside James, and sighed with tenderness. "Yes, he is. And thanks to you, we have a new chance as a family." That night, in her small apartment, Isabella knelt, as she did every day, and gave thanks for the opportunity to have touched the lives of the Thompsons. She knew her mission was far from over. As she prayed, the phone rang. It was the hospital. Another family needed help, needed hope. With a serene smile, Isabella prepared for her next challenge, feeling blessed to be able to continue her journey of healing and love. When she closed her eyes to sleep, she knew she would carry with her the greatest lesson the Thompsons had taught her: the transformative power of faith, love, and perseverance, capable of rekindling even the dimmest lights of the soul. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment with a number from 1 to 5 to let us know how much you liked the story. Also, watch the video currently on your screen. See you soon.